All right, so where are men and the women who love those men getting their definition of masculinity and manhood? Movies, TV, social media. Seems both sides of the political aisle are trying to appeal to masculine men, right? And those jackasses, they have no idea what they're even trying to appeal to. Ask any of those places to define it, and you're going to get a world of broken men and broken women trying to piece together a warped cultural identity that, truth be told, it just sucks. It's just full of ignorance and willful ignorance. It's a flawed framework that glorifies the misuse of power. It celebrates toxic behavior. It leaves men confused about who they are. And if the men are confused, just imagine what it's doing to the women, right? They try so hard to find a real man or to believe that they are in a relationship with a real man, or they're convinced that real men are even do they even exist, or have they all been snatched up by other women, other luckier women? But what if there was a better way? What if there was a framework as old as time itself that guided men towards their true source of power, towards their true identity, that guided men to their higher purpose? You see, in a world that focuses on some sort of misguided concept of success, this framework is based on the core desire of every man, whether he is aware of it or not. And that word, the core desire, is one simple word, the word fulfillment, and its three interdependent parts: personal fulfillment, professional fulfillment, and spiritual fulfillment. In this video, I'm going to cut through all the BS and the noise and focus on 5 principles that should be the foundation of every man's masculine journey. It's a framework where the words spiritual and spirituality and biblical are in the same sentence with the words masculine, masculinity, manhood. They're in the same sentence with those words where they belong. It's the quest, the arduous journey that every man is on, whether he is aware of it or not. If you're ready to stop chasing the world's broken definition of masculinity and manhood and build your life on a foundation of undeniable truth, then stick with me. Welcome to Masculine to the Core and the Man in the Arena podcast. My name is Mark Mascola. I'm grateful to be here and grateful you are here as well. You are a man who is on the quest to become more God-centered and fulfillment-driven. You, my brother, are in the right place, and now is the right time. If you haven't yet, I invite you to step into the arena and subscribe. And as always, check the links in the description for stuff you won't find here on the channel. Buckle up. Here we go. So let's begin with the definition of a word. The foundation of everything we're going to talk about today is built in one word, and that word is principle. Definition of the word principle is undeniable truth. We live in a world where men sacrifice their principles. Spiritual, biblical principles should be the guides of our behavior. They should be the guides of every decision that we make in all situations. Is your marriage guided by spiritual principles? How about your fatherhood? Where are you with spiritual principles in your fatherhood? How about your career and your finances? Is your career, what you do for a living, guided by spiritual principles? Again, we're going to discuss 5 undeniable truths that you can begin using today to become more God-centered and fulfillment-driven. Again, like I mentioned earlier, not chasing some misguided form of worldly success. And believe me, I'm not against the word success, financial success. I'm not against it. But if you are successful professionally and you suck as a husband and a father, I can assure you, you are missing the meaning of your masculine journey, your walk with God. I'm going to share with you some Bible verses that are based on each of the 5 principles. And I'm also going to share with you a free resource so you can see how fulfillment driven you really are. I'm going to give you an assessment tool that you can do. And again, it's a freebie. So principle number 1, assessment. Assessment is a principle of spiritual manhood because it requires men to take an inventory of where they are in their personal, professional, and most of all, their spiritual walk with God. Now, I said those really quickly, but let me break those apart. Take an inventory of where they are in their personal walk with God, their professional walk with God, and their spiritual walk with God. See, the goal of an assessment or an inventory is not about creating a personal ass-kicking contest of self-condemnation. It's about discovering places where you may be settling for a lot less than the potential God put in you. You see, there are actually 8 key areas that every modern man must master, and that's part of a man's assessment. He should assess where his personal growth is, his relationships, his physical health and wellness, his mental clarity and health, his nutrition, his recreation, and his spiritual connection. So looking at those areas, where are you winning? Let's do more of that. Where are you losing? Let's quit convincing ourselves that we need to do more of that. Let's make a course adjustment. What are you settling for in your life, in your personal, professional, or spiritual life, that it's time to quit settling for? So here's some Bible verses about assessment. Proverbs 24, 3 and 4. By wisdom a house is built, and through understanding it is established. Through knowledge its rooms are filled with rare and beautiful treasures. Ephesians 4:31. Get rid of all bitterness, rage, and anger, brawling and slander, along with every form of malice. 1 Corinthians 10:12. So if you think you're standing firm, be careful that you don't fall. Lamentations 3:40. Let us examine our ways and test them, and let us return to the Lord. Matthew 6:33. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all things will be given to you as well. So let me ask you a question. Are you interested in discovering how God-centered and fulfillment-driven you are? I mentioned it earlier. I created a free resource tool that may just reveal to you some areas in your life where you may be ready to begin creating some different results. I'm going to put a link in the description. Again, it's free. It's a free assessment. It's called the Power Number Assessment. Check it out. And let's talk about principle number 2, identity. This is the core principle of spiritual and biblical manhood. Knowing who you are and whose you are. And yes, the whose has a capital W for a reason. You are an image bearer of God, born in the image and the likeness of the power itself. A godly man's identity is centered in accepting his self-worth. God created him, you, me. He created all of us worthy. Anchored in self-confidence, right? I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Anchored in the powerful image of the godly man that we are all on the quest to be and to become. So here's some Bible verses on identity. Ephesians 2:10. You are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. 2 Corinthians 5:17. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has passed away. Behold, the new has come. 1 Peter 2:9. But you are chosen that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. 2 Timothy 1:7. For God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power. John 1, verses 12 and 13. But to all who believed in his name, he gave the right to become sons of God, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. So principle number 3, personal responsibility. Spiritual and biblical manhood focuses on taking ownership of one's actions rather than being a victim and blaming others. We are all at the place we are in our lives because of, number 1, decisions we made, or perhaps decisions we haven't made. The Bible talks about sowing and reaping, right, in multiple areas. What you plant, you're going to get in return. Plant godly things in your life, you're going to get godly. Plant ungodly things, you're going to get the same. You're going to get ungodly things. Taking personal responsibility for where you are. This is one of the greatest things you could ever learn about this principle of personal responsibility. Taking personal responsibility for where you are, for your past, will free you up to taking personal responsibility for your future. Creating the life, the God-centered, fulfillment-driven life that you were meant to live. Bible verses about personal responsibility. Galatians 6:5, for each man will have to bear his own load. 1 Corinthians 13:11, when I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I gave up childish ways. 2 Peter 1:10, therefore, brothers, be all the more diligent to conform your calling, for if you practice these qualities, you will never fail. Luke 12:48, everyone to whom much was given him, much will be required. And from him to whom they entrusted much, they will demand more. Luke 16:10, one who is faithful in very little is also very faithful in much. And one who is dishonest in very little is also dishonest in much. So let's talk about principle number 4, validation. Spiritual and biblical manhood focuses not on external validation, and although those are important, our personal and professional validation, it focuses on internal validation. A man, me, you, knowing who he is, and again, whose he is. And while we all look for validation in everything we do, personally and professionally, understanding our spiritual validation must come first. All three of these are interdependent parts of our masculine journey, but striving for personal and professional, this look at me at the expense of our spiritual validation is a trap that will lead to a life with a lack of fulfillment. No matter how much money and stuff we have, we will live unfulfilled. True validation and approval are found in our divine relationship through Jesus, not through some sort of warped sense of worldly masculinity, success, popularity, or this crazy kind of social influencer, right? We don't need that kind of validation. There is a secure identity that we must find through Christ that allows us to be men of impact in our homes and in our communities, which leads us to our 5th principle. But first, some Bible verses on validation. Galatians 1:10, for am I now seeking the approval of man or of God? Or am I trying to please man? If I were still trying to please man, I would not be a servant of Christ. Psalm 37:5 and 6, open up before God, keep nothing back. He'll validate your life in the clear light of day and stamp you with the approval at high noon. 1 Thessalonians 2:4, but just as we have been approved by God to be entrusted with the gospel, so we speak, not to please man, but to please God who tests our hearts. So principle number 5 is the principle of impact. All 5 of them are important. But our impact is not defined by our worldly power, but by stewardship, service, leaving a legacy in your personal and professional life, a legacy of faith that outlives your time here. A man of impact is an example of God working in, with, for, and most importantly, through. Impact, living your life in a way that your godly example, again, outlasts your time here. You, my brother, I can promise you, just like me and just like every other man in the world, has been given a kingdom assignment. In Acts 9, verses 10 through 19, there's a story of a godly and faithful man named Ananias of Damascus. In a vision, God gave Ananias a unique assignment. Said, go to Damascus, go to Straight Street, and find a godless man named Saul. Ananias knew who Saul was. He knew the violent reputation, and he was terrified to carry out this unique assignment that God had given him. But being a disciplined and trusting servant of God, he was terrified of what could happen, but he obediently did this assignment. What Ananias didn't know is that God had been working on Saul also. As a murderous persecutor of the church, Saul, on the road to Damascus, had heard the voice of Jesus and had been stricken blind. Furthermore, Ananias didn't know that as Saul lay blind in Damascus, Saul was actually praying to God and had given him a vision of a man that would come to him. The unique assignment that God gave Ananias was the answer to Saul's prayer. He found the blind man, laid his hands on him, prayed with him and for him. Ananias, carrying out his unique assignment, became a man of impact. In the conversion of Saul, who later became what many believe is the greatest apostle, the Apostle Paul. This demonstrates that God calls ordinary man to do extraordinary things. Again, the 5 principles: assessment, identity, personal responsibility, validation, and impact. Again, take the free power number assessment. I'll put the link in the description. Have a great day wherever you are in the world. We'll see you on the next video.